welcome to the 90-Minute Cynic Podcast. I am your host, Christopher Boud, and tonight I'm joined by Christian Wulff.
Pleasure.
Christopher Sermanni.
Good evening, Chris.
And the always angry Ciaran Harran. That was the worst angry I've ever heard. We'll get right into it. At the weekend, the glorious Glasgow Celtic, with over 125 years of illustrious history, had a 2-0 victory over the approximately 3-year-old Rangers. Ladies, gentlemen, what were your thoughts? Who wants to start us off with their opinion on the game?
I'll go for it. It was not one for the neutrals, shall we say. It was... I know in the weeks running up to it, we kind of voiced concerns because of not so much the history, but the history we've had with the supporters of the new club, and Celtic's ability to mess things up. But it played out exactly the way it should have done on paper. It was a lower division club versus the top team in the SPFL. We didn't get out of first gear. Once we scored the 2 goals, we seemed content to just play about with things. They posed absolutely no threat. Didn't have a shot on target, I believe. And, yep, safe to say it was a non-event, really, to be perfectly honest. And to be honest, I'm not really concerned if there isn't another one anytime soon.
Yeah. 2-0, Ciaran. Is that enough? Should Celtic have won by more? Are you happy with that score?
We had the ability to go and win by more because you could see the golfing quality that was there. The fact of they had no shots on target. They had one shot which was off target. I can't remember how wide it was. From what I remember, I was quite surprised at the possession. They had it down at 57% for Celtic, which I thought it must have been a good bit higher than that. Because we seemed to just control the ball and just have the ball in our possession. But the second half, we did take our foot off the pedal a little bit. We had the opportunity to, not quite embarrassing them, but we could rack up quite a high score against our old foes who we've wanted to do for so long. But I mean, there was some good performances. Brown and Beaton were fantastic in the middle of the field. They were really combative, getting about it. Stokes was off a boil, which was a bit of a surprise because usually he can get up for these kind of big games. It was good to see Griffiths rather than Guidetti, which I said was the better thing to do, and it showed because Guidetti came on and the only 2 flashpoints in the whole game, he was the ones in the middle of it, possibly starting it. So I think it's quite well he didn't start because I don't think he would have finished the game. I think he would have seen red because he's quite a kind of angry, frustrated, pumped up young guy.
Swedish.
Damn Swedes.
Bit of Scandinavian politics there. I think you're just justifying that, Ciaran, because you wanted Griffiths to start in the podcast last week. So I'm not having that.
Yes, because
I predicted they'd score 5, but that obviously didn't happen.
Yeah, I would say I was one off the starting lineup. I had the Forest instead of Commons. I also had 2-0.
And about 7 red cards.
Yeah.
I think it was.
My red cards let me down. None of them fucking sent off.
Christian, what were your thoughts on the game? Any standouts?
Yeah, I think it would have been good, looking at this from a Deila perspective, as I'm brought in to do, I think, not just drink tea.
You're more to us than just a Deila expert, although your Deila knowledge is pretty good. So.
Thanks, mate. No, I think it would have been fun to see a big blowout and a big score. I think there would have been a big one had they got the third, just before half-time had Mr. Thompson not used his whistle quite a bit earlier than he should have, or had Johansson managed to squeeze that past one Siemens, I think he probably would have seen 4 or 5 in the second half. Going into 2-0 at half-time, I think they probably thought, job done, because I think it's easy to forget afterwards, but leading up to this week, it's such a big potential banana skin in terms of the pressure around it. There's nothing to gain from this for Celtic, basically, unless they got a big score, big media hype, terrible pitch. And so when it came out, had control, 2 quality goals. So I think in the second half, the pitch was getting worse. So if you want to put a really positive spin on it, you can say that by not getting out of second gear and still winning so comfortably, it's almost more of a humiliation than if you'd racked up 5 or 6 in a different way. So I thought the second half was, some people say it was terrible football, which is probably not far off, but it was also quite professional, controlled, and basically a performance from a team that know in their hearts of hearts that they actually have bigger things coming up and more important things than this game, especially after it was practically 1 at half time as well.
Absolutely, and you touched on the failure to play advantage from the referee. What were our thoughts on the referee's performance?
There was a few flashpoints. One of the biggest calls was that I've heard of in the media was Ian Black complaining about Scott Brown's challenge on him, which was meaty, shall we say, but the two ones that stuck in my mind was, sorry Ciaran, we arm around the shoulder there. The ones that stuck in my mind was obviously the foul where was it Griffiths that was through? Yes, yeah. Where Griffiths would have been through in goal. It was a preposterous decision, and the continued assaults from Lee McCulloch when he elbowed Griffiths in the back of the head and then stamped twice, I think, on Guidetti at the end. I thought, we've seen this a million times for the guy, and it's never picked up.
That's a free pass. He has a free pass in any game against Celtic, it appears.
He's so old and decrepit these days, it's a large part of his game. Hitman, assassin, essentially. But we've seen it so many times, and the fact that it doesn't get picked up, it's really a bit of a bone of contention for me.
I've actually got some inside referee knowledge here I'm going to bring to the table. So I actually know one of Craig Thompson's former assistant referees. He used to be part of his team. I was speaking to him this week as well, and just about the performance and how he's doing. And obviously, he looks at it from a biased referee point of view as well. But he said he thought, in terms of why he was blowing the whistle that much, I think he was almost thinking it's an intentional thing just to kill the game off in terms of any flashpoints in any sort of gonna happen. He blew quite a lot. You can say he blew the wrong way sometimes, but I think it was quite a clear tactic just to almost kill the game that way. Yeah, and I think, and specifically the one with Brown, he said he probably thought that Thompson saw that as that could have been a potential flashpoint, as it kind of were at the end when Brown went in for a similar tackle as well, and he just wanted to kill a stop dead, thereby, not even thinking about seeing if he can let it go for a couple of seconds to see an advantage as well. As I said, that's probably quite a positive referee spin on it as well, but it's probably where Thompson came from in those kind of things as well, that he was very eager to blow a lot and quickly just to basically kill off any sort of tension in the game.
I've seen worse performances, if I'm going to be kind. But in terms of that spin, I think the way the game went, I think the fact that we were comfortably ahead but we didn't go for the jugular maybe took the sting out. If we had been embarrassing them, or it had been closer in terms of the quality between the sides, there may have been more flashpoints. I think that took the sting out of the game more than anything. I don't think it was a good performance, but as I said, I think I've seen worse, so I'm not going to dwell on it really.
See, with that as well, you could almost think that kind of conspiracy theories out there could start thinking, well, do you know what? It was a great result for the police and for the SFA. The fact of that it wasn't a hammer, the fans weren't really getting it tore into each other, or we weren't giving it big up licks to them because it was only 2-0, and they were half expecting a good tanking as well. So there was not that animosity really, because the game was kind of quite quiet and there was very little flashpoints.
Yeah, but just on a tangent then as well, and in terms of saying that it must have been a bad result for the Daily Record, because they still managed to squeeze 2 front pages out of the Old Firm violence this week as well. But yeah, that's another story for another time.
Yeah, and talking about media, and you've touched very much, Chris, on Lee McCulloch or Lee McElbows. The Sports Scene highlights didn't have his stamp or, I believe, his elbow either. Do we still have a Scottish media bias?
Yeah, let's just keep the conspiracy theory going. Do you know, Sports Scene are guilty of that a long time, and I'm aware that you're always going to see things through your own tinted perspective. But the fact of the matter is, that was a major talking point. And I take it I haven't seen the highlights. Did they have Scott Brown's tackle on Ian Black?
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you're going to show that, then you need to show McCulloch's stamp. At the very least the stamp, because the stamp was worse than the elbow, if you ask me. The fact that they've pulled that out is either very bad editing, or it's full of bears in the editing department.
Possibly, do you think that footage has been lost so that the compliance officer can't use it?
Let's ramp it up. See the guy that lost the footage? That's the grandson of the guy who left the lens cap on
in 1963.
What's that?
Where was he in Dallas in 1963?
I think I seen a one-armed man with some footage hobbling out.
Running from the scene.
I was surprised that the highlights on Sporting wasn't actually longer, because I thought they were actually quite short and sweet. But I know I'm going on another tangent, but I think in sports scene there's a good show there wanting to come out, and it's just not happening yet. Because I like some of the people on it, and I think they're, Jonathan Sutherland's quite a good host as well, but it's just something that's just not clicking in that programme.
They maybe had a more international flavour.
Maybe I mean, somebody who's available for quite a modest fee as well, and it's has a face for radio, so who knows?
Tea. That's all you ask for.
I bet the tea on the Beeb is quite good as well.
Well,
all the taxpayers' money in there.
Do I think you'll get a selection of fruit teas if you went there, whereas you get Tetley or nothing here.
The Beebs had never had me on the TV. They had me on the radio a couple of times. So, although I've been on STV Glasgow, which was an experience in itself. That doesn't count.
I don't think they can afford tea. Their budget's that low. It is a two-bob operation.
I think
if you're out there at STV Glasgow and you're looking for a football podcast show, give us a call. We'll bring our own tea. Just a wee pitch there.
Slight tangent. So, back to the game. The pitch, did it make a huge difference? What do we feel, Ciaran?
Yeah, that was not a suffice for a passing game. It actually suited Rangers, because you could see from the kind of get-go, they were just all about the long ball. They were happy, and in fact it heightened even more because they brought in John Daly at half-time. So that was it was playing into their hands, that they could just lump up their high balls, and with the pitch being poor, it restricted us for being able to play passes because it was cutting up so bad. I mean, there was times going in for tackles, just huge big divots popping up everywhere, and it's a worry how that's only about 6 games it's played that, because I think Queen's Park played 2 games so far. In fact, they're only 4, so there's only been 4 games in that since it was retuffed again in October. So it's quite worrying, the kind of poor standard of pitch that the national stadium's got.
And I think it affected just the way the players approached the game and what we're doing. I think their decision making was, a large part of that was going, I can't play that ball because it's going to bubble 5 times before I get to the guy. So I think it's not just an actual what happened when they did try to pass, but also just from the outset and what they were planning to do.
Not just that as well. We're saying that even just the kind of general turning and movement, it wasn't slippy. It was supposedly very soft, which is why obviously when they're turning and they were just digging it all up.
I think you touched on it earlier, Christian, about the professionalism and the performance. I get the impression Deila and Collins would have probably said, look, job's kind of done here, let's not go in here full-blooded. This pitch, I mean, we've got bigger things ahead of us, as you say. We don't want any injuries. I think we just did enough what we needed to do, and I think the pitch would have played a part in that, because in terms of football from us, it was quite low-key. I don't think we were that flashy, and I think that was a lot to do with that, was the fact that the ball was getting stuck up. And in terms of a national semi-final, to play it on that pitch was just a disgrace, to be honest.
It was, and you've seen that in the comments from the players afterwards. You had Scott Brown, I think you had Kenny Miller, Chris Commons pulling faces, and they were right. It was verging on dangerous for the players, I think, to be out there. We've touched on briefly, Beton, Scott Brown standing out. Who would you pick for your man in the match? Christian Wulff.
Well, I can't say Johansson, can I? Even though I mean it. I don't want to overload.
Left.
Exactly. I agree. I thought Beton